Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of the Benchmade 531. So first I want to thank my buddy Jim for sending this along. This is something I've seen a lot, handled a lot, contemplated a lot, but never actually pulled the trigger on, so it's a beautiful thing to actually take a look in person. Your 531 is an upscaled version of your Benchmade 530, which has scales, but they're plastic, and they always felt really, really chintzy. And so I'm a big fan of the 531 upgrade. It takes this to a nice G10, and, just makes it overall still a lightweight, compelling package, but a little bit nicer. The big thing that this knife has going for it is actually the size. So size-wise, here is your Spyderco Delica. So you can see it's slightly larger in dimensions, but it's a very, very thin knife. It's as thin as your Delica, and it's very, very light. It's even lighter than your Delica, although not by too much. The beautiful thing about this is just how compact this is. This is the smallest and lightest weight folder the Benchmade offers, and that itself is a pretty compelling kind of thing. So let's just go on right into the good, the bad, and the ugly of your Benchmade 531 here. So first and foremost, the biggest good thing this has going for it is the size and the weight. I mean, flat out, this is really, really tiny. Not necessarily in the functional sense, because you've got a fair amount of blade. I mean, compared to your Delica, you've still got more blade, actually. But it's just so damn light, and it's so small, and it has a way of, it doesn't feel like anything, particularly in the pocket. So that's kind of a beautiful thing. It's got a bunch of other niceties to it, too. As you can see here, I hope, the axis lock actually does protrude to either side, which means it's very easy to grab. And speaking of the axis lock, one really nice thing is that on this particular knife, and I've never seen this with another axis lock, if you pull back on the axis lock, it actually pops the blade open. There's no spring here, but there's just a mechanical, basically there's a coupling. You can see here that the axis lock is in a little slot, so when you pull it back, it pops the knife open, which means that it's very compellingly easy to open this knife just by using the axis lock. And this thumb stud, although it works, and actually is kind of cute in a lot of ways, this is actually metal, you don't really need it. And so that little axis pop-open feature is really nice. I like that, and I wish Benchmade would include it on more things. Blade itself is 154 cm, which is good to go. No complaints there. It's a Pardue design, as you can see on the side there. And 154 cm is just so nice to work with. I stropped this the other morning, getting ready to carry it for the review, and holy crap, is this pleasant. I mean, just, it doesn't fight you in the way that the modern super steels do. I miss 154 cm. But anyways, so that's just an ode there. This is a very thin blade. I mean, very, very, very thin. We're talking thin on the order of your Spyderco Dragonfly. Very, very thin, which is nice. It's a good thing for an office kind of EDC. The G10 here, you can actually, hopefully see, let me show you this, is actually layered, meaning that there's a gray layer, then a black layer, then gray layer, then black layer, and that's how they get this kind of cool topography going on there, which is pretty interesting. I'm not a big, I got no problem with it, particularly, and with this texturing, it looks particularly interesting. And again, it's a huge improvement over the crappy plastic scales on the 530. Unlike most axis locks that I've handled, on this one, there is actually no blade play at all, which is really cool and also really depressing, because that means that on all the more expensive Benchmades I've handled, they've screwed that up, which is kind of impressive. I mean, this is not the free swinging sort of axis lock that you're used to, but it's damn close, and there's still nothing. It locks up rock solid, and that just, oh, Benchmade, you gotta up your game. But anyways, on this particular knife, there's no blade play, and that's kind of a wonderful thing, and it's good to see that they can do that sometimes. The grind on the blade is very nice. You've got a very deep grind, which means this is a really excellent slicer. I was using this to, sharpen a pencil yesterday, and I cut open an app. I mean, it's a great little slicer here. And the price on this, and everybody brace yourselves, because I'm about to say something I never thought I would, and that's that Benchmade has priced this knife very reasonably at 130 bucks. Whoa. Dude. Holy crap. No, I mean, seriously. At 130 bucks, this is pretty compelling because, the materials, the G10 could be better, and there are a couple of weird little things, but this is worth 130 bucks to me. I would have no problem paying that, particularly given the uniqueness of the form factor, the well-doneness of the axis lock here. I got no problem with Benchmade's pricing decision on this particular knife, which Hey, never thought I'd say that today. Anyways, so yeah, 130 bucks is a good price for this. So that's the good. Like I said, it's a really lightweight folder. It's got a great blade and a great steel. It's nicely executed, or at least this particular knife is nicely executed. And, overall, there's a lot good here. Let's jump into the bad. So the first bad thing is the clip. Honestly, the clip is just fugly. I feel like they've got a really good inventory of other clips that they could have put on this, including a deep carry clip, which would have been smart, but they didn't, and I don't know why that is. And I hope that they do better. That's a nitpick. One thing that is not a nitpick, though, is the wideness of this knife in the pocket. So because the clip is flat against the side of the knife, like so, if you've got the edge of your pocket here, and the other edge of your pocket here, this knife is actually taking up a pretty good proportion of the open part of your pocket. So if you need to reach your hand in to get a phone or something like that, you're always going to be fighting this knife. A really good thing that they could have done here would be to use a different style clip, like for instance your John Graham style clip that goes on the corner of the scales and allows the knife to just adhere in the corner so your hand can move right past the knife. Which is just a wonderful thing when it happens. And it really tucks the knife out of the way. I wish they'd been able to do that. It'd be a little hard with the G10, but, you got engineers. You can figure this out. But I feel like this clip on the side thing is really hindering this knife's ability to be what it's supposed to be, which is a really, really excellent, subtle, easy carry knife. That's just my 2 cents, though. What can I say? The blade shape on this knife is not thrilling to me in that it's a little daggery, and it's honestly, I feel like they could have done a better blade shape for this. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. It just doesn't turn me on there. Speaking of things that don't really turn me on there, the G10's texture, and particularly with this milling pattern, is just I don't know. I don't know why, but it's not appealing to me. I feel like this knife needs to be wearing a tap-out t-shirt for some reason. And that's completely... what are you going to do with that as buying advice? But there it is, I said it. So I'm not a fan of the texture. It just doesn't really do it for me in a particular way. Although I do like the layering here. I feel like they could have done better without that. The construction on this knife is weak because it's G10 with a little bit of skeletonized liner and just a fairly thin blade and whatnot, so this is not a hard use kind of knife, but that's okay. And the ergos on it are not great. And actually, let's just jump on into why that is and talk about the ugly. The ugly on this knife is right here. This is the flare on the back of the knife. That's just ugly. And okay, sure, I'm a fan of symmetry. Don't get me wrong, I love me some symmetry all day of the week. But these flares are just a problem, and for 2 reasons. This one down here makes sense, because it stops your finger from sliding out onto the blade. No problem. This top flare makes sense if you're holding your knife like this, but I kind of want to choke up a little bit more on it, and this flare then digs squarely into my thumb. So I don't see it there. And then this one right here is completely unforgivable in my mind because even for my small hands, this flare does absolutely nothing but dig into my hands. And as nice as it is to have the knife be kind of vaguely rectangular and symmetrical, this is a real ergonomic missed opportunity. And in fact, if I was keeping this, I would almost certainly grind this off while wearing a safety mask because G10 is dangerous to grind on. But I'd have removed that. No question in my mind. And part of it is due to the lanyard hole, and, I'm not a big fan of lanyard holes in the first place, and so I'm just a little extra bitter there. But I really, really wish that they'd have rounded this side off, and, hell, keep the flare down there, what's the problem? But these flares make this knife ergonomically bad when it really doesn't need to be. The rest of the knife is ergonomically just fine. And so that's something you really got to check in your hand to see if it's a problem, and something you can very easily fix, because this is just plain G10, just with a Dremel and you're good. But I'm not going to do that to a loaner because I'm not a jerk. So there you go. That's your ugly. I just wish it didn't have that damn flare on the bottom there. So what's my final verdict here? So this is a specialty knife through and through. It's not a hard-use knife. It's not a do-everything, everyday carry, live through the apocalypse kind of knife. This is a lightweight folder. And as a lightweight folder, this is at or near the top of its class. I mean, the other lightweight folder to beat is your Spyderco Delica, but this has a lot more blade to it. And in a lot of ways, it actually carries a little bit smaller than your Delica. It's slightly wider, but it's a different thing. And so these two compare very, very favorably to one another. And, 154 cm steel is great. I mean, there's a whole lot to like here. So if this is a conditional gem, if you like lightweight, this is a gem. If you're a backpacker or if you're a cyclist, even you just really don't want something heavy in your pocket for some reason, this is a really, really good option. And it is probably a gem for you. But, for me, it's probably not going to stick around just because I already have and love the Delica, and I don't need that much lightweight that badly. This is also a knife that's begging for custom scales, as are a lot of Benchmades, but I would just love to see a pair of, aluminum scales on this. I think that could make this just a hit out of the freaking park. But, hey, whatever. It's also a pretty good value from Benchmade. Sorry, I just said that was a pretty good value from Benchmade. Weird. Anyways, but it is, because you're getting a good steel, you're getting decent enough materials, you're getting, at least on this one, good construction. And, for $130, if you can go to a store and find one that isn't made badly, I think, you're in a really good position here. You will walk out at retail price happy with this knife. And I think you're getting good value off of it, which is great. And, so that's my final conclusion. If you're after an ultralight folder, this is a really good knife. And if you really need a weight reduction, this is a gem. But, that's what it is. And it's a damn good value for what you're getting off a Benchmade, which, okay, sure. So, I hope this has been helpful. And if you need lightweight, here you go. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day.